It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans, and I will be your host this morning. Glad to be back with you. I was out yesterday, and I apologize for those of you that sent me email. Thank you for your concern. I just had a business meeting, and I had to be out of town, and I wasn't able to get up a recorded program because I couldn't log in remotely. So my apologies for that. For those of you that were trying to track us yesterday, I appreciate that. Thanks all of you who are out there this morning with us. I see Indianapolis out there, and I see Fort Wayne, Indiana, Bath, I think that's Maine, and Sanford. I see a ton of folks out there in College Station, Sunnyvale, California. I see you guys out there in Florida area and Washington State area. Nice to see you out there. Appreciate you, those of you who are up early in the morning out in California and on the West Coast in Washington. So maybe you get up in the morning and you get yourself all enthused by listening to this program as you're getting ready for work, and that would be a great thing. If you're capable of listening to our program on Patriot FB, that would be a great thing. PatriotFB.com. It's kind of like a Facebook clone, but it's basically all patriots, and there's no trolls on there, and there's no monitoring, and so forth and so on. Great opportunity for you to be a part of a community. In addition to that, there's a website out there called constitutionclub.ning.com. They have a unique program, and they support this program extensively, but they also have a unique program that I kind of like. I'll tell you what it is. They have a little micro website for every one of the 3,300, give or take, counties in the United States of America. And each of these counties obviously has people within there who are, thinkers along the lines of patriotism or preppers or whatever the case may be. Activists of all different shapes, manners, and sizes. The neat part is that there may be people who are members of those county little microsites that you don't even know but live in the same county as you. And so it's an opportunity for you to meet together with other people that might live close to you that you don't even know exist. And it's a great way, I think, for folks to get together and collectively work. Community organization works. How do we know that? Well, we've got the most tyrannical president that we've ever had in place largely as a result of community organizing. I mean, that is his forte and, quite frankly, his entire resume, right? So we know it works. The question is, how can we make it work for us? We're going to cover 4 different topics this morning, as is our usual practice. First and foremost, why is the propaganda ministry silent on this Bilderberg thing? I mean, at least in the United States, at any rate, there seems to be a willful silence on the part of the mainstream ministry of propaganda about it. And it's interesting to me because what we're talking about here is, first and foremost, a censorship and a silence that's self-imposed by the media. I mean, nobody's censoring them but them. And, of course, their censorship leads to our censorship, which, we don't really have any control over. And when you think about the Bilderberg issue, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, and blah, 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 blah. I'm just asking myself this question. Why is it that when the world has a collective group of hundreds of the planet's oligarchs all getting together to join hands in an annual kumbaya, and these people are going to sit there and try to plan and scheme and plot on how to control the world, that the mainstream media is silent? I mean, it's not a hard question, right? Meanwhile, the press, of course, will cover anything about Hollywood. They'll tell you about where Kanye West and his, whatever her name is, are off on a honeymoon. and show you the lavish mansion they're staying at and how they're eating caviar, and they'll tell you some obscure story about a millionaire who's leaving money in envelopes around a city. But they're not covering the things that matter. You see, the problem is, if it comes to billionaires plotting with the world's government leaders in an annual confab, only organizations and alternative media outfits like InfoWars and alternative media like Guardian and The Independent in the UK are covering it. I mean, the American media is dead silent. Just makes you question, what is the issue with the Bilderberg conferences? Why is, and I mean, let's be candid, folks, the Bilderberg conference is, these are hundreds and hundreds of the world's wealthiest and most influential people in the world who all gather together and they sit there and they discuss, and by the way, they're meeting with representatives and members of the United States of America in our official government capacity, which is illegal, by the way. Nobody says anything, but it's illegal. And you got to wonder, what the heck is up with this? I mean, why is it a silence issue? I don't understand that. InfoWars is out there covering it, and you got to admit that, and I give them credit for having the courage and the audacity to cover what nobody else wants to talk about. They've even published a current list of participants for the 2014 meeting. I mean, folks, it's a who's who of everybody in the world who matters fiscally, financially, power players, the oligarchs of the planet. Including, by the way, interestingly enough, Keith Alexander, U.S. Cyber Command, former director of National Security Agency.
Things that make you go, said Kermit the Frog.
You got to be kidding me. Anyway, our second topic this morning. The new announcement that there will be the Federal Housing Finance Agency, that and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which I exposed the other day about a whole other story, which we're gonna get into. But these two groups are forming and creating a database that will house and contain information, and I'm talking about information including credit ratings, your Social Security number, all of your personal information, in a brand new database on 227 million Americans. Hey, folks, for the record, that's every adult alive. They're not trying to create some master race database for us. They're not just trying to be some kind of tyrannical monsters. They don't really listen to what you say, and they don't care what you write to your sister in an email. Okay. But they're creating a database on 227 million people. Well, there's only 315 million of us, folks. If you discount the kids, and you discount the 25 million illegal aliens. I mean, and by the way, that number has been 25 million illegal aliens they say 11. But, I mean, that number has been 11 since 1980, right? They're not breeding. There's no extras coming in. They're dying off as fast as they're pouring over the border. Is that what you're trying to tell us? Because I don't buy the number. The real number is 25 million plus. And if you discount those people and you take the kids out of the mix, 227 million is all there is left. That's every man, woman, and adult in the country. The only ones that are leaving out are those who are, under the age of probably 13, 15. I mean, it's unconscionable. What are they going to do with that data? It can't be for your benefit. I'm going to throw the offer out again. I've thrown it out before many, many, many times. I've never been taken up on it. $100, crisp $100 bill, mailed to you. If you can give me one good, one solid, one logical, rational, well-reasoned reason or benefit that will come to you as an individual based on government having a master-sized database that contains everything about you. You've got to explain to me what benefit you will derive. Not them. I know what benefit they get. I want to know the benefit to you. Hello. I've never even been challenged, even close, for that $100. So get creative. I want to see it. I guarantee you my email box on this issue will be silent. because there isn't one. You cannot come up with a well-reasoned, logical explanation or benefit that you personally will receive as a result of them having all of this information on you. Case closed. There is no argument you can put forth. It does not exist. Our third topic, illegal immigration, being ignored by the Obama administration. They are pouring over the border at an unprecedented rate. There was an interview last night on the Kelly File with the guy who originally put out the video, and it's They Come to America Part 1, and now he's got out Part 2. His contention is that it is so bad that the Border Patrol in Texas is on the brink of collapse. They cannot handle the influx. There are thousands and thousands a day now, and they're mostly not Mexicans. In other words, they're from other South American countries, right? So they're OTMs, as he refers to them, other than Mexican. Because right now they're pouring in from Honduras and the South American and South Central American countries. They're coming up here in droves, in massive numbers, and they're pouring over the border. And frankly, they're overloaded to the point where they're literally dropping them off at just bus stations. They bring them in, they check them in, they drop them off at a bus station and say, check in with us from time to time. I kid you not. Now, if you call that immigration and border security, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, we're giving preferential treatment to people who are pouring over our border that are coming over here with one goal in mind. They hear all the talk of amnesty too. The word's spread all over the street that amnesty is the name of the game. And if you just get in here early enough, you'll be in the lottery. That's your lottery ticket. Get across the border, you hold a lottery ticket. That's a guaranteed winner. Our fourth topic, Operation Choke Point. It's a new program out there, and it's a rescission of the Second Amendment. You can call it by any other name you want, but that's what it is. All right, let's tackle this first issue. You know, this Bilderberg thing. By the way, if you'd like to call into the program, please feel free to do so. We have our new phone lines in service and operational. 573-453-5505. And you're certainly welcome to call. You know, try to stay on topic, obviously. If we're talking about, you know, an issue like the Bilderbergs, you know, let's not talk. Wait until the immigration section to talk about that. You know, or if we're talking about, you know, Bilderbergs, let's not stray off on something else extraneous. But the issue here is you're welcome to call in. We want your opinions. We want your feedback. You'll get on the air. And it's 573-453-5505. Okay? All right. So Bilderberg is 60 years old. They've been meeting since the 50s in these secretive annual meetings. They get together. They talk about, well, we don't know what. I mean, they give you an agenda out, but it's you know, pretty vague, number one. Number two, the goal, of course, is for them to determine and figure out how they can basically, you know, it's the we get to stiff you one more time meeting, right? It's kicked off by, it's kicked off by Henry Kissinger, which ought to tell you an awful lot right off the bat. Henry Kissinger, right? You got to be kidding me. At 91 years old, this slug is still running around treasonously betraying the planet. But it's amazing to me that the mainstream media is not covering it at all. I mean, they mention it from time to time. It gets a little flash blurb. You know, the Bilderberg meeting and, you know, the conspiracy theorists are at it again. That's the sum total of their coverage. How can that be? How can it be when the press is actually taking cameras from people and imprisoning them, charging them, arresting them? Media. Why isn't the media reporting the media is being arrested? Hello? Chairman of the Supervisory Board, Deutsche Bank. Former CEO, Deutsche Bank. PA Consulting Group. I'll just read you some of the names. Aalto University Foundation. UBM. Keith Alexander. I told you about him earlier. Roger Altman, Evercore. Finnish Business and Policy Forum. A lot of these names are foreign, so I can't read them because I can't pronounce them. George Asmussen. I don't know how he's Dutch. Here's my point. These people are, all of them, either they are in the upper echelon of income. They're in the 0.1% of the 1%. Okay. So, for those people who are out there saying, they don't even you have no contemplation of a person who has access to 20, 30, 50, $100 billion. I mean, really, folks. That kind of money is so unimaginable to most of us. You could spend $30 million a day and not even come close to even putting a dent in it, right? But this is made up of companies and I shouldn't say companies, individuals from all over the world who are the movers and shakers in finance. They are the movers and shakers in policy. They are the movers and shakers in security. They are the movers and shakers in social engineering. And the media ignores it like it's no big deal. I don't understand it. How is it that only InfoWars and the UK Guardian and the UK Independent are talking about this? Meanwhile, you got Biden over there. Biden, did you hear Biden? He challenged the Air Force Academy cadets to create a, quote, new world order. You see, they're so brazen at this point, folks. They're not even trying to hide the fact that they're doing it. He challenged the graduating Air Force Academy cadets on Wednesday to help create a new world order for the 21st century. You're kidding, right? No, I'm not kidding. In an open discussion in a stadium with a microphone, the Vice President of the United States of America is telling the Air Force Academy cadets who are just graduating, you are the pillars of the New World Order. I mean, come on. How opaque do you want it to be? Nobody gets to see the great wizard. No how. You pull back the curtain, and here you think you're going to see this great and wonderful wizard, and there's this weazened old codger in there who's corrupt and standing there naked with his sagging belly and his hanging gray hair, and he's manipulating the planet. For what? To what end? I mean, I don't understand that kind of mindset because, and most Americans don't, and that's the problem. You see, because the people who are doing this, the people who are insisting on having a say and manipulating the world to their own viewpoint, if you will, of what it ought to be, I don't even understand why they would want to do that. I mean, you're going to leave it soon anyway. All of us are. And I mean soon in a timeline of events, right? I mean, recognize something, folks. None of us are going to live forever. Everybody who's ever lived on the planet has died. Everyone. Everyone who's currently living is going to die, and in relatively short order in the overall timeline of things. You can't leave anything, you can't take anything with you, and even what you leave behind, you have no control over. It gets divvied up any way that anybody chooses. What do you see about manipulating the world into this new world order that will benefit, your progeny in the future? I don't see it. I really don't. There's no assurance that your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and their children and are all going to benefit from it. In fact, they're all to be enslaved just like the people that you don't like. What kind of demonic self-treason motivates that? It's a mental illness. And that's the truth. It is a mental illness. You think people who are running around and this idiot over in California who buys stabs 3 of his friends and then shoots 3 people he doesn't know, you think he has a mental illness? He does. But this guy has a teaspoonful of the mental illness that these other same people who, they're killing people the same way. They just kill them in such massive numbers that nobody can, you can't really point to them. They're willing to see entire races and entire nations slaughtered. To what end? It's an abomination of humanity and nature. It really is. There is a the Bilderberg thing, and by the way, they're not the only conspiracy group out there. And you can't say that they're not a conspiracy group. They clearly are. I mean, their agendas are secret. The people who come are secret. Everybody who tries to get a photograph of them gets arrested and beat up. I mean, come on. What have they got to hide? If what they're doing is actually so good for the world, what do they have to hide? Why must it be a secret? If it's all so good for us, if we're all supposed to be such beneficiaries, and quite frankly, we're all going to bask in the glow, the afterglow of these decisions that these decision makers create, then why can't we know about it? Secrecy, tells its own story, folks. And that's the truth. Secrecy tells its own story. And these people are secret for a reason. And it ain't for your benefit, I can tell you that. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about why 227 million Americans are going to be in a brand new federal database. It's going to cover everything about you, down to the size of your shoe or the size of something else. I mean, how insane is this? And, most Americans will just shrug and say, oh, well. Oh, well. What? What do you mean, oh, well? All right, you can support America's Voice now in a couple of different ways. But one way that you can do that is by going to work with American Resume Service. They have 20,000 employed happy clients over a 25-year period. That's a lot of folks. And they rewrite resumes. They take the resume that you have and they redo it to improve it and make it focused and of high echelon quality, so that right now the search for jobs is very, very tight. You want to make sure that you're right at the top of the list and you make the greatest impression, because all that resume will do is get somebody to pick up the phone and say, come on in here and let's talk. And they'll enable you to do that. They have a $200 resume building program. If you have one, great. If you don't have one, they'll help you build one. And essentially, they charge $200 normally. They're reducing that for America's Voice listeners by a 50% discount. So you'll get it for $100. Then they're going to take that same $100 and donate it to America's Voice Now. What a win-win-win for everybody. In fact, American Resume Service is doing a great feat with this. Anyway, so you can call them at 417-264-2486. You can visit them on the web at AmericanResumeService.com. You can email them at info@AmericanResumeService.com. And you got to tell them that you're an America's Voice Now listener and you heard about this program here, because that's where the program is being done. At the same point in time, they're going to do this for the first 20 people that come along. I don't know how many they're into it at this point, but, the idea is that they will then donate that whole $100 to America's Voice Now to keep us on the air. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to tackle this topic of 227 million Americans in a brand new database, as if there aren't enough already. And make sure that you visit our friends over at batterystation.com, batterystation.com. Outstanding sponsor and friend of ours who does an awesome job providing you all kinds of services, including the best electronics and battery services in the nation. They ship all over the country. Buy your batteries in bulk and get them from batterystation.com. We'll be right back. We're back, and you're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host here this morning. We're in our second segment this morning. Thanks for joining with us. You can also listen to us every night from midnight to 2 a.m. on Big Country Radio 99. That's the Rooster Radio Network, based out of Houston, Missouri, covering a vast portion of south central Missouri. And that's my local stomping ground station, if you will. And those folks are very, very gracious and generous in providing us airtime in our marketplace. It's a great way for folks who want to hear America's Voice Now to do so on the airwaves. Yes, it's on a little late at night, but this is a country music station, and so I give them credit because here what they're doing is essentially putting a news talk format on at night in the middle of a country station, and it's country crossover. They throw a little Led Zeppelin and a little Aerosmith in there from time to time, so it's not all twanging guitars. You know, it's funny. I kind of joke around with the owner of the station up there, a guy I like very much. He I kind of coined this thing for him where, in our area here, people wear cowboy hats a lot, or they wear ball caps, and everybody wears a hat around here, except me. I don't wear one, but everybody wears hats. And the idea is that by day, the people who listen to Big Country 99, they're wearing ball caps and cowboy hats. But at night, they take those off and they put on their Tri-Corner Patriot hat. And I got to tell you, they're the salt of the earth, the folks who live around here, and the people that surround and support and help keep this radio show going. They are some really great folks out there, and I'm very, very appreciative and very grateful and honored to be accepted by them. So. And that's no lie. That is the truth. You won't find more real people, and I mean real in terms of, they're just straight, honest, hardcore, hardworking, happy to be here and trying to fight back the onslaught of evil Americans than you will in the central United States, but especially here in southern Missouri. All right, we're going to tackle this topic of 227 million Americans in a brand new federal database because it's appalling to me that here we've got government so blatant at this point, so obvious, so out front. They're not even trying to hide their tyranny and treason anymore, folks. 227 million Americans will be compelled. Did you hear the word? This is in the Washington Examiner. If you're watching this on YouTube, and you better be sharing this with other people. If you're watching this on YouTube, down in the description section of the program, I'll have a link to this article so you can read it for yourself, as you should do. And then you should use that as the impetus to kick off an investigation of your own so that you are fully cognizant of what's happening, so that you can speak articulately and intelligently to those people within your circle of influence and help spread the word that America has fallen into a tyrannical police state and we are now a fascist nation. Hello. How much more plain do you want me to make it? A new federal database will track Americans' credit ratings and all other financial information. 227 million Americans will be compelled. That's their word, not mine. Compelled. That means forced at the point of a gun, mandated, don't have a choice, to disclose intimate details of their families and financial lives, including their Social Security numbers, in a new national database being assembled by two federal agencies. Need I remind you that federal agencies have no constitutional authority nor legal justification to exist. They are unaccountable, unelected, appointed bureaucrats with a motivation and a goal that is separate and aside from the defense and the protection of the Constitution of the United States of America. I might also add that they don't take an oath of office. Hello? The Federal Housing Finance Agency and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, recently created in 2010, who has run into a problem with their employee ranking system. So basically anybody who is ranked mediocre or above will now be ranked at the highest rating of exemplary, and everybody gets a raise. Hello. If corporate America did that, the entire country would be bankrupt tomorrow morning. Not that we're not already, but we're bankrupt in a government perspective. But every industry in the planet, if they all decided to do that, and everybody got a pay raise based on their non-performance performance, the whole planet would be bankrupt. By the way, we are anyway. For the record, we couldn't sell our country, just our nation, for the debt we owe. Let me rephrase that. The debt that the United States of America alone owes, we wouldn't be able to sell the entire assets of the planet Earth to, the Alpha Centaurians to cover the debt that the United States owes. That's why I say to you that an economic collapse is not a question of if, it's a question of when, because it's unsustainable. And even the politicians will tell you that because they're setting you up for the quake. But this database being built by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was posted in April 16th in, of all places, the Federal Register, where all treason, tyranny is posted. The Federal Register, where all treason is written down. See, it's so obvious. It's a confession in writing. They put out there a notice of an expansion of their joint national mortgage database program that will include personally identifiable information that reveals actual mortgage holders. It's a reversal of a previously stated policy to keep your personal information unidentifiable. The FHFA, another curse word. By the way, I consider these kinds of 3- and 4-letter words to be far more offensive to me than any traditional curse word that your pastor his toes would curl if you used. And frankly, that's the way every church ought to be looking at it. They ought to be willing to say those other words on the pulpit and then tie into it all of these 3-letter agencies and 4-letter acronyms that describe every treasonous, traitorous program in the nation. And then say, now, congregation, ladies, gentlemen, brothers, sisters, which offends you more? Treason or a word used in passing meant to shock you? One is meant to shock you. The other is meant to enslave you. Which would you rather that I use? The FHFA will manage the database and share it with the Consumer Protection or Financial Protection Bureau, just recently created as part of the traitorous Dodd-Frank bill. Passed and written by, of all people, Dodd from Connecticut, who was a traitor extraordinaire, who's now, by the way, part of the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America lobbying group, where he's out there working to try to censor the internet so that you might not download a Disney movie without paying $39.99. You got to be kidding me, right? That's the sum total of this guy's life work? What a shame. Frank.
That was Barney Frank. You got to remember Barney Frank. Don't you remember big old fat Barney? He was out there smashing all these big deals, making sure that all the financial people had all the motivation they could do.
Big old fat Barney. I mean, when I look at Barney Frank, I look at him in the same light I look at a Nancy Pelosi and a Hillary Clinton and a John McCain and a John Boehner. I literally feel sick to my stomach. Literally. They're going to create this database, and they're going to manage and share it. It will cover 95% of all mortgage transactions. 95%. So if you own a home, you're in it. Do you have a choice? No. Did you give your permission? No. Are they going to ask for it? Heck no. They're not going to ask you for your permission. Did you agree to this? Show me. Where? Where did you sign up to say, yes, you may put all my information out there in a database that's distributable to everybody, including my social security number, and violate my privacy? Violate my privacy because it's nobody's business but mine what property I own and who I owe money to. Essentially, every adult in the nation is being monitored. And you see, here's the problem, folks. I've been telling you all along that for a mere $300 per person, and this is their estimate, not mine, that your own government has a dossier that they're building on you. $300. That's the sum total cost to what it costs them to have enough storage capacity to handle everything about you. They're storing within that all of your purchases, what you own. That's why you're paying personal property taxes, real estate property taxes. All that's going into the database. Everything you buy, all your credit card swipes, all your ATM swipes, anytime you take out cash, anytime you go to the store and you lay down your ATM or your debit card or whatever you want to call it, every time you use a credit card, everywhere you travel, all that information is being collected and gathered. And then it's being inserted into your own database. It shows your traffic patterns, where you go, who you talk to, when you're out on business, what kind of a business do you work with, what kind of a business do you own, who do you work for, who's your employer, what's your job duty, do you travel, do you not, what are your traffic patterns, how can we find you if we need you. It also contains all of your communications. Who do you talk to? Who are your relationships with? Do you have a Facebook page? And if so, who are all the friends that are linked to you? And then, of course, it has the 7 steps to Kevin Bacon. There are 7 leaps to Kevin Bacon, or you know what I'm talking about. The point is, the data points are all into these databases. It contains your relationships. Who have you been married to? How many kids do you have? What are their names? Who are their friends? It covers your spending and your purchases, and the ownership of those products or real estate or real property that you own. Where do you like to go vacation? What are your interests? What kind of books do you read? What kind of stuff do you look up on the internet? What kind of television programming do you watch? You'll notice I use the word programming because that's what it is. Television programming is television programming. Your mind is being programmed by 8 companies. Actually, there are 6 mainstream news media organizations. And by the way, there's only going to be 5 because Congress is hiding and the media is hiding the merger of Time Warner and Comcast, which will create a juggernaut that will blow your doors off. So it will soon be down to 5. They're covering everything about you, your interests. What do you why else would you have a database like this that covers your medical history and your health? When you're forced to sign up for Obamacare, don't forget, you have to submit all of your financial information that they then verify against your records, your tax records. That's part of the Data Hub service, right? Then, of course, it goes to DHS. DHS does some background checking on you. They're running a criminal background check on you when you sign up for Obamacare. You didn't know that? I don't know why. You've been listening to this program a long time. Then they take that same information and they submit it over to Social Security Administration, and the SSI group goes in there and looks and says, is this person who they say they are based on the financial information that we've got for them, based on the IRS tax recordings and what they've paid into the SSI Ponzi scheme. And then they come back and they say, okay, so this person is who they say they are. No, they don't have a criminal background, or yes, they do. And the IRS comes back and says, yes, but, there's some information that's been floated here. And, of course, when they signed up, as they were required to do at the point of a gun, what we didn't tell them, or we hid in plain sight in code in the language, but it never physically shows for them, is that all the information that they submit enables us to use it for investigation, audit, and prosecution purposes. And those 3 words are theirs, not mine. So you are waiving your 5th Amendment right against self-incrimination. You're being forced to do it at the point of a gun, which is a violation of your 4th Amendment right to privacy. Hello. So meanwhile, now they've got all your medical history records because under Obamacare, every doctor is required to keep electronic medical databases, and they're required to update all of their past history into a medical database. So they know that, you had a kidney stone when you were 32, and they know that, you had some kind of venereal disease, and they know that you've had some kind of cancerous tumor removed, and they know that you've had breast cancer, and they know that your husband has had a golf ball-sized tumor taken out from behind his eyeball. Then they're capturing all of your spending and your purchases. Well, what kind of jeans does this person wear? Why do they shop at the Gap so much? Oh, they spend a lot of money at Walmart. Okay, so let's do this. Let's put out a feeler and buy the Walmart database that Walmart has on them, because that kind of information would be unconstitutional for us to gather. So we'll just buy it from Walmart and we'll stick it here in their dossier. And now they know that you bought Swimmies for your granddaughter. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. What kind of a picture can you draw from this? Then they track all the things that you own: your car, your house, your boat, your summer vacation, your vacation home. any real estate you've ever owned in the past, any real estate you plan on buying, any mortgages, any applications that you've ever put in for a loan, any kind of car that you own, any kind of cars you've owned historically. Then they look at, okay, so where does this person travel? Where do they go when they go on vacation? Where do they like to go? Where do they travel where they don't spend time in a hotel? We know they're there because we've got the NSA tracking device telling us where they're going, right, because of the GPS chip in it. But we know that they're not staying in a hotel because they haven't used a credit card, so they must have friends in Albuquerque. Let's see. Let's pull up their Facebook profile and their Google Plus profile. Then let's pull up their LinkedIn profile. By the way, the LinkedIn guy, the CEO of LinkedIn, is over at the Bilderberg conference right now, plotting your demise, but that's a whole different story. So now they've got all of this information, and they know that you've got some friends in Albuquerque because you're not staying in a hotel. And they pull up your Facebook page, and they notate that you sent a Twitter, or tweet out to your followers, how asinine, that, you're going to go on vacation, which, of course, ignited, the interest of every burglary guy within a 50-mile radius of your home, but that's a whole different story, too. Now they also pull up all of your judicial history and records. Let's see. Have you ever been sued? Have you ever been sued professionally? Have you ever been sued personally? Have you ever been sued or had to file bankruptcy? Have you ever been in court? Have you ever had a criminal case? What kind of traffic fines have you paid? What kind of a driver are you? Let's go ahead and pull their insurance records while we're at it. And we can verify what they own based on the insurance because, let's face it, if you own a car or a boat or a jet ski, you probably have insurance to cover it in case it sinks. So let's make sure we gather and throw all of that into the database too. Then they go through your likes and your dislikes, and they're pretty easy to figure out because they've got all this information about you. They know that you prefer the Southwest over heading north for vacation because you've never vacationed over in Maine, but you consistently seem to go to Arizona and Albuquerque, New Mexico. Then they start to pull up all of your political affiliations. Let's see. By the way, by the researchers' own stated, goals, they can tell you what your political affiliation is based on all this other information they have. And they are 95% accurate. Did you know that? Yes. They are 95% accurate as to what your political affiliation is based on all the other information in your dossier. And if you're politically active, they can see that because it's out there on your Facebook link and your Twitter feed. And, maybe you wrote a letter to the editor and all of that, right? The emails that you send. And you can kind of get you can read through somebody's email and pretty much figure out where they stand on any issue. Really. I mean, are they conservative-minded? Are they fiscally conservative? Are they fiscally conservative but socially liberal? Are they socially liberal? How did they talk to their friend when their friend exposed to them that they were gay? How did they handle the fact that their son or daughter came out to them? How did they handle the fact when their son or their daughter called and said or wrote them an email about how they were at college and they were involved in a protest? Did they encourage them or not? You get it? I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, folks. You don't even have to have a poli-sci degree or even a psychologist degree. You can just sit there and take a look at this stuff, and if you read enough information about someone, you can pretty much get a pretty good glimpse of who they are. Now they pull your calls and your emails, and they've got empirical proof. Don't tell me they're not collecting your calls. You're an idiot if you believe that, because I just exposed to you the other day that the NSA is recording every cell phone call in the Bahamas and in Afghanistan and numerous other countries that we're not being told about. Now, we also know for a fact that the United States of America is collecting all of the information on American phone calls in relation to the metadata. And we already know, and I've given you empirical proof, that just based on metadata alone, that and this was a study done by an independent company. They went out there and with the metadata of the duration of the phone call number that was called, and so forth and so on, that they can pretty much identify you individually, personally. And they can do so 80% of the time using public databases alone. Did you know that? So they take the phone number that was called, and they know you called it, Bob. So they pick up Bob's metadata and they see the call, how many times it's been made, how long Bob is usually on the phone with number X. They take number X, they throw it into a public database and say, give me a reverse directory listing for this. And it's a girl named Betty. And that doesn't ordinarily create a problem unless Betty is somebody other than Bob's sister. Now, if it's Bob's sister, okay, the calls are once a week and they're an hour in duration, and Bob keeps in fairly close contact with his sister. But if Betty turns out not to be his sister and he's married to Cindy, maybe we got something here. And if the calls happen to be twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, and one of them at least once a week extends to 3 hours, it's very likely that Bob's got a girlfriend named Betty. Then they collect your internet searches, and we don't even want to get into that because now they know more about you based on your internet searches than anything else that you can provide. Is this person worried about the fact that they've got cancer? I mean, they were looking up melanoma on the internet. And we know what kind of prescriptions they take because they looked it up on the internet and they looked at what that interacts with negatively. And they realized that they're not supposed to take aspirin along with this blood thinner, and they shouldn't be taking the two simultaneously. So now we know that they're on a blood thinner and that they take aspirin. And by the way, while they were at it, they Googled all the other drugs they take. So now we know pretty much, and we've got their medical records to confirm and prove it. And it's interesting. They see 4 different doctors, one who's an oncologist, one who is an OBGYN, and one who's a general practitioner. And isn't it interesting that they've got conflicting prescriptions? So basically, here's what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. They're building a digital hologram of you. It's a hologram because you can put your finger through it. But it's 3-dimensional because you can walk around it and you can see the entire thing. And you can see and study every nook and cranny and crevice. You are bare naked before these people using data alone. They know everything about you. They know your likes and your dislikes, your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations. They know how you think. And you see, with that kind of information, you're an easy target if you buck the system. And it'll only be apparent to you when they use it against you. You see, this database already exists. They're just adding more and more and more of them. Just because you don't know the details are there doesn't mean that they aren't. This isn't something you've got to take on faith like religious belief. They're waiting. All of this data is sitting there, waiting, poised to be pulled, and handed over to someone who will become your prosecutor, your persecutor, and your literal or virtual executioner, who will cull you from the herd when your disobedience and nonconformity to the plan have been exposed. And you have absolutely zero say. Because for the 60th year, the planet's masters are getting together to discuss how they can manipulate the herd. The individual doesn't matter. It's the bigger picture. Truthfully, America, I feel sorry for us. Because without a global lights out event, these databases are so vast, the treason is so deep, we'll never get free of it. If there's any vestige of it left, I mean, we'd almost have to go back to an agrarian riding horses planet, planet-wide, I might add, in order to just regain anonymity now. Think about it. You're listening to America's Voice. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hit on illegal immigration and how it's being ignored by the Obama administration, how that is an act of treason against the country, and how serious the problem is, because they're pouring across the border, folks, in wave upon human wave. War is being waged against the United States of America by illegals all over the world, and your own government is helping them. We'll be right back. You're listening to America's Voice Now.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host this morning, and you're joining us in our third out of four segments. Thanks for riding with us today. It's TGIF. That would mean, thank goodness, it's Friday. And I say that because, well, it's been a harrowing week. The World Food Bank, or the World Bank, I should say, not the World Food Bank, because there is no World Food Bank. We were it, and we're now bankrupt, so there is no World Food Bank. But the World Bank is sounding the alarm on rising global food prices. Did you hear what I just said? They're raising the alarm on rising global food prices. But your government and your Federal Reserve, the traitorous bankers who are, have been leeching and sucking America dry of its financial blood for 102 years now, they're telling you that inflation is a myth. Just ask anyone in government. They'll tell you that your wallet is a liar. Isn't that interesting? Why is it that we're always told, don't believe the obvious truth right in front of you that has empirical proof all around it? And yet we're told to believe stuff like manufactured, justified, commissioned science. Science by people who aren't really motivated by what I used to construe as science, which was, people interested in getting to the truth for discovery's sake, right? I mean, yeah, there's, they get a crown at the end, and they're titled as the greatest scientist, and their name goes down in the history books along the lines of Pasteur and, so forth and so on, right? That was what I thought of scientists. Now, perhaps I was naive, but this day and age, it's all about how do I get the grant money, and what do you want the science report to look like? That's basically the question. These are hired guns now. Science is no longer science. It's now a question of utilizing your degree as a hired gun. I mean, it's no different than in the days of the Old West, when you called in the gunfighter who came in and he pulled back the sou'wester and he pow, 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 pow. That's all that science is today, folks. There is no true science. The FDA buys the science that's given to them by the drug manufacturer who tells you it's perfectly safe. Only later on do we find out that your kidneys now look like Swiss cheese. Only later on do we find out that the antidepressant drug that they've been telling you is 100% safe and inserting in minute amounts throughout all kinds of other drugs that you didn't think were dangerous and didn't even contain that stuff, rewires your physical brain, the way in which you biologically think. Hello, and we have no idea what that is. We're just, experimenting on millions upon hundreds of millions of people. It's insane. The whole world is upside down. The police state's in full-blown operation. There was an article out there on fusion.net this morning. This one will blow you away. In Miami Gardens, the police were doing this, this stop and frisk type thing. And they were so blatant about it. They said, we want every person that you see who's black between the ages of 15 and 50 checked and roust them. right? What we used to call rousting, right? The cops would walk up and say, all right, let me see your ID. What are you doing here? Where are you going? Where are you coming from? Why are you here? You're loitering, right? They did this so many times, folks, that they did it 8,489 times to kids. 1,775 senior citizens were caught up in this stop and frisk thing in just one city alone. Between 2008 and 2013, the police made 99,980. That's just 20 numbers short of 100,000, right? They made that many stops, 100,000 stops in the Miami Gardens area. There were 1,000 people that were stopped more than 10 times. And there were more than 1,000 people who were over 70 years old stopped. 250 of those people were stopped more than 20 times. 27 of those people were stopped more than 50 times. And here's the problem. There aren't that many people who live in that whole community. It is a police state. And it's everywhere around us. Miami City, their police department, with a population of more than 400,000 people, only made 3,700 stops in the same period. 37 as opposed to 100,000. 3,700 as opposed to 100,000. There was one guy, wait till you hear this. His name is Earl Sampson, and he works at a local convenience store. They've stopped this guy over 200 times, one individual. They arrest him every time they see him. He was sleeping. The store owner was so concerned about how many times this guy had been stopped and pulled off of the property for loitering and arrested, he gave him an apartment in the back of the store. Said, look, don't even go out, because as soon as you walk outside the door, they're on you. They came in the store, went into the guy's bedroom, and arrested him for loitering. He protested. He said, I work here. The owner said, he works here. They said, we don't care. What? That's police work? You see, there are only, and you have to understand this, there's only some 32,000 or 30,000 people who live in Miami Gardens. 30,000 people. And they've stopped people in between 2008 and 2013 100,000 times. Is everybody a criminal? It wouldn't appear so if you look at the immigration issue. Because Department of Homeland Security is now actually taking the immigrants who are pouring over the border at the rate of between 1,500 and 2,000 a day, and they're actually putting them on a plane. Wait till you hear this. And they're flying them to Texas from Tucson. I'm sorry, from Texas to Tucson. And then they're just releasing them at a Greyhound bus station. So hold on a minute. Let's understand the true dichotomy of this, because it's so deep, it makes that Deepwater Trench where Flight MH370 was supposed to have gone down look like a shallow pond, right? Let's understand what we're talking about here. You've got thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are pouring across our border illegally. We know that they're illegals. We don't actually send them back over. Instead, we put them on a plane and we fly them from one state to another state, and then we bring them in, we fingerprint them or whatever the heck we do. We ask their name, which is probably not even their real name, and they got no birth certificate papers to prove it, and then we just cut them loose at a bus station. Meanwhile, in Florida, we're stopping and frisking every citizen of a city, 5 times? Hello? Meanwhile, they're building a database on every American, 227 million of them. That's pretty much everybody who's here legally and above the age of 18. And you're wondering whether there's really a police state that exists. The argument and the reports out from the Washington Examiner are we are in crisis. The number of young illegal immigrants pouring over the U.S. border is, quote, unprecedented. Remember that word unprecedented? This is the one that Obama uses for everything. It's unprecedented. I'm unprecedented. Everything that I do is unprecedented. When I take a poop in the morning, it's unprecedented because no president has ever taken a poop like me. I'm unprecedented. Here's the problem. It's gotten so bad on the border, ladies and gentlemen, that they are now allowing children with no adult supervision to pass over the border. And they're collecting them whole and putting them in holding pens, contacting some relative or family member in the United States, hopefully, and then handing the kid off to them. And all under the Dreamers Act. And that's why the number of kids has gone from a few thousand a year to 60,000, and we're not even in June. They estimated the number would be 60,000 this year for the whole of 2014. Well, guess what? This report came out on May 15th. Let's just call it that. That's only 5.5 months into a 12-month window, and we've already passed 60,000. Parents are giving their 6-month-old, 3-year-old to total stranger coyotes and dragging them up over there all the way from wherever they're coming from, Guatemala, Venezuela, Bolivia, Colombia, pouring their families, their children, into the hands of strangers and saying, here, take my child, bring them up there to the Mexican border, cross over the Rio Grande River, and then just hand the kid to the authorities. Because under the Dreamer Act, they're going to get amnesty. And I'll find them later. The U.S. authorities report there was a massive surge in May of children trying to escape crime, drug gangs, and sexual exploitation in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, and it led them to cast aside the administration's prediction of 60,000, which is still more than twice the number of 24,000 apprehended last year. Now, the year before that, by the way, the number has been doubling every year, because the year before that, it was actually more than doubled. The year before that, it was only 6,000. Then it was 24,000. Then the estimate was 60,000, and we've already blown past the 60,000 number. And it's only May. Ann Wilson, the executive vice president for Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, says it's a city of children. There's 100,000 kids on their feet walking out of their countries. And they're all pouring over the borders here, and they're coming here because Obama and Biden and the traitors at DHS and border security have said, we're not going to deport anybody. Amnesty is wide open. It's guaranteed to happen by July. And even if it doesn't happen, under the Dreamers program, we're not sending anybody back. So don't worry about it. Send us your young. Send us your vulnerable. Send us the ones that can't defend themselves. And we'll take them all in. Doesn't matter what the law says. And I'm all okay with being a valuable aspect of the global community of charity to help people out. But what you're doing is you're subverting the entire fabric of the United States of America. And you're doing it in open, blatant, brazen violation of the constitutional prohibition and the requirement that the federal government only has one of a very limited number of duties. And that one of those duties is to protect the borders. And when Arizona tried to protect their own border and said, well, apparently the federal government's not going to do it, so we're going to do it, they got sued. I get it. These people are leaving deplorable conditions. But we didn't make those conditions, and it's not our obligation to allow them to just pour over our border with, and listen, it's dangerous for them. Even if they make it here unmolested, unenslaved, unrobbed, unsexually molested, which is doubtful. Even if they make it to the border and the coyote has enough, whatever you want to call it, integrity to get them over the border safely, then they're abandoned here with all of our wolves. Don't tell me we don't have predators here. How is that helping them? See, the real issue here is that they're using a flood of illegal immigrants to do the fundamental transformation and change that Obama promised us we were going to get. He did promise we were going to get fundamental change. 3 days after his statement. We are 3 days away from fundamentally changing the United States of America. That's what he said. It's what he meant. And it's what's happening. And if you are ignoring the realities of that, gee whiz, folks. It's not your country anymore. You see, you can vote. They can't even vote, but guess what? They've got more power than you do because they stand out there and they chain themselves to a fence and they go out there and they sit in a congressman's office that you'd get arrested for sitting there. And for some reason or another, the congressman bends over and says, "We're not worthy. We'll do whatever you want. Go ahead, please." What is up with that? How is it that we, the people who are paying for it all, the people who are supposed to be allegedly represented by these people, the people who are supposed to have some say in what's happening to us, have no say, and people who have no skin in the game, no real reason to be here, no authorization to be here, no skills or benefits to add to the overall pot, if you will, and they have more say than we have. It's beyond comprehension. The DHS chief, Jay Johnson, he says, we got to stop the Secure Communities program. Secure Communities says everybody who's arrested's got to get fingerprinted, and then they run it through a database to see if they're legal. And if they are, they're supposed to be held until they can be bounced off the border. They're not. They've just shortened the time frame from 3 years to being from 3 years to 15 days. In other words, they're shortening the time, the statute of limitations. If you are more than 15 days here in the United States, free pass. Free pass. Well, you're seasoned. Seasoned? What are we, a bunch of iron kettles? What do you mean we're seasoned? You're here for 15 days and suddenly you're a seasoned violator of the law. And that's reason not to prosecute or eject. I don't want to prosecute it. Just kick them back over the border. You got Obama promising to bring everybody back home from Afghanistan. Then when his department goes out there and outs their own CIA guy, which was an absolute, rookie level mistake. Then, to make matters even worse, he says he withdraws his statement that we're going to pull completely out of Afghanistan, and to try to cover it up with some other news so that the press doesn't beat him up too hard on that one, he says, well, we're going to just keep 9,800 here. Okay, let's just go with those numbers for a moment. That means that thousands and thousands more Americans who are battle-hardened are coming home. Great, let's place them all on the border and line them up, locked elbows, and say, nobody gets in here, no how! And give him the order. Nobody crosses that border. Stack them 2 deep. Stack them 3 deep. I don't care. Stack them up like a phalanx of the 300 with shields. And lock down that border. I don't want to be uncompassionate, but I don't want to be a damn fool either. We can be compassionate, but on our terms. Charity is not saying, guess what? Anybody who wants can come live in my house, eat my food, take my stuff, and wipe out my bank account. Anybody who wants, as long as you're homeless. How? Why would you do that? How long will you last? A week? Then what? Isn't it wiser to say, I'm going to apportion a percentage of what I have, and I'm going to help out others who are less fortunate than myself? And I'm going to do it willingly. And if enough of us do that, the problem will be solved. Now, imagine, let's take the first scenario and say, now government's doing that to you at the point of a gun and saying, we're not asking you, we're telling you, you're out. We're going to leave your house wide open. We're going to let your refrigerator be raided. We're going to leave your bank account exposed. We're going to let whoever wants to take your car and your clothes and your jewelry and your home. And you ain't got no say about it. Now get out. Explain the justice in that. That's not social justice. That's fascism. That's tyranny. It's a monster. Raping, pillaging, killing its own people, its own nation. There's not enough justification that Jay Johnson and Barack Obama and Luis Gutierrez can give us. This is indefensible and inexcusable, and they all know it. And the problem is that even if we were to take, let's assume tomorrow morning the president says, you know what, I'm resigning, that's it. There's a brand new guy in place. He's going to be a constitutional president, or she's going to be a constitutional president, and all's going to go back to right with the Constitution. Guess what? The damage is undoable. We can't take it back. We can't move them out. We can't collect them all. How are we going to do it? Find them. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to look at Operation Choke Point. This is where they're labeling gun sellers as a dangerous item, like as if you were selling explosives or as if you were selling a dangerous drug. And they are doing nothing other than rescinding the Second Amendment by a backdoor method. And it's an act of flippin' treason, America. And your banks, they're all playing part of it. You can support this program and the radio station that we do and the voice that we put out there every day to awaken and alert America. You can do that by going to patronizing our sponsors, like Battery Station. You can go to them. It's at batterystation.com. They support this program and make sure it stays on the air. BatteryStation.com, or you can call them at 417-257-7799. They have batteries and flashlights, and then they've got literally thousands of other products that aren't even all of them up on their website. But they've got all kinds of stuff up there. Get over there and visit them, BatteryStation.com. Our friends over at Pizza Hut. At Pizza Hut, here especially in West Plains on Porter Wagoner Boulevard, these guys stand up and support this program every day. And I would appreciate it if you would support them. If you're in the West Plains area, go in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays for a reduced price lunch. And then on Tuesday evening, bring the family because it's family night and kids under 12 eat free. Last but not least, AmericanResumeService.com. AmericanResumeService.com. 417-264-2486. You can also contact them by email at info@AmericanResumeService.com. They've got a special program where you get a $200 resume for $100, and then they take that $100 and hand it right over to America's Voice Now to keep us on the air. If you need a new resume, that's the way to get it. We'll be right back. All right. That was a painless commercial for you guys because, well, commercials are painless. If you're listening to us on radio, those were a bunch of great sponsors. And we ask that you patronize those folks because that's who keeps us on the air. If you weren't listening to it on radio, well then, for crimini's sake, you didn't even have to hear the commercial. So make sure that you patronize our sponsors anyway, because these are the guys that keep this program on the air, and it's important that you do so. If you're going to be in the West Plains area, swing by Wits End Classic Barbershop and get your hair cut for $10. They also do an old-style shave with a straight razor and the whole 9 yards. You walk in there, you feel like you're in a place that's, 50 or 60 years gone by. There's a chess set there, and, there's local fellas sitting around talking and, swapping lies about the biggest fish they caught and all that kind of thing. Great place to go. You feel like you literally step back 50, 60 years in time. Maybe more. It's Wits End Classic Barbershop. They're on the square in West Plains. You can get your hair cut there for $10. While you're at it, if you've got a husband or a boyfriend or a significant other, make sure you bring them down there. Maybe a father. Maybe Father's Day is coming up. It's a great opportunity for you to take them down there and pamper them with a hot lather shave that they do with the straight razor and the hot towel and the whole thing. So you can give them a call at 417-372-2027 and let them know you heard about it on America's Voice Now, and they'll make sure that they take really good care of you. I would encourage you to set up an appointment for that kind of a full spa thing for your significant male other. Anyway, 417. Last time I did this commercial live, I said, bring your husband or your wife. Well, if your wife needs a hot lather shave. All right. So you might be part of the LGBT community. Man, that's PC or un-PC, huh? You can get over to see our friends at Wits End Classic Barbershop. 417-372-2027. They're on the square in West Plains. You can swing into the cigar shop behind them, by the way, if you'd like, while you're at it. Make sure that you see our friends at Battery Station. BatteryStation.com, 417-257-7799. And say hi to Kevin. Great friend, great man, good American patriot. Man, salt of the earth and a true American hero. American Resume Service. They're supporting our program by donating the proceeds of their 50% off resume program straight to America's Voice Now to keep us on the air. AmericanResumeService.com, 417-264-2486. Info at AmericanResumeService.com. I sound like Captain Kirk from Star Trek. Make sure that you contact those folks. They've got 20,000 employed happy clients in the past 25 years, and they've got to be doing something right. They rewrite your resume, or if you don't have one yet, they'll help you build one from scratch. Mike's a good friend of mine. Make sure you tell him you heard about it on America's Voice Now, otherwise he won't know to apply the program for you. Their $200 resume package, $100. All right. So Operation Choke Point. What is it? Why do we keep seeing every effort made to strip the United States of its constitutional and I want to, it's not constitutional permission, but it's constitutional basis for your God-given and your naturally given right to defend yourself and your country against tyranny and traitors. See, the House Oversight Committee is arguing about the DOJ, who's warring or waging an illegal war on guns with this Operation Choke Point. And the reason why they're doing it this way is because they can't ban them constitutionally. They're protected. So they just try to get at them another way. This administration and every one of them before them, I'm not leaving anybody out. They're all traitors. Both parties, everybody's guilty. They're all determined to strip you of your ability to defend your nation against them. See, we don't even care about the personal safety of some wayward criminal. Let's just put that out of the discussion for a minute, because they surely don't care about that. They're not interested in you not having a weapon because they want you to be injured, or they don't care one way or the other. You're just a cog in a wheel. You're one grape among billions. That's the way they look at it. And some grapes are going to get bruised and busted, and they don't care. That's how they look at you. What they are interested in is making sure that you don't have the ability to defend yourself against them. California is passing a brand new anti-gun bill that will take things to a whole new level. They're saying you cannot even make your own weapon. Now, the ATF, as far as I'm concerned, is an act of treason, period. You cannot have a Second Amendment that says shall not be infringed, and then a group called the ATF that's whole job is to infringe. End of argument. Right? You can't have two diametrically opposed forces occupying the same space. Doesn't work. If this elephant is sitting here and another big fat elephant walks over and wants to sit there, you can't have two elephants that occupy the same space. One elephant has to push the other elephant out of the way. It's the way it works. That's just the laws of physics. And you cannot have an anti-gun organization like the ATF whose sole job is to infringe, and a Second Amendment which says nothing may infringe. They can't coexist in the same time and space. Now, even the ATF has ruled that anyone can make their own gun. You're not required to have a permit or a license or anything else. You don't even have to put a serial number on it, as long as it's you're making it for yourself. Most Americans don't even realize that. You know why? Because the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda doesn't want you to know that. But you can. You can go out and buy the parts and make your own gun. There's no serial number required on it. They can pick it up and look at it and say, hey, why doesn't that have a serial number? And you can say, because I built it. Proudly in my home basement garage, or my garage. And there's nothing they can say about it legally, because you are allowed to do that. Even according to their draconian laws and rules. Now, you're allowed to do it anyway, but that's a whole story. Whole different story. Here's my point. In California, they're now going to make it illegal for you to make your own gun. I mean, as if they can, do with an act of legislation, do away with an act of legislation, that which nature and God, and even the law of tyrants allows you to do. What part of shall not be infringed doesn't California get? You see, you need to understand why these rights are important to you. And I've gone over this gun thing with you guys many times. Now, the Department of Justice is using a new Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation regulation. This is the FDIC, who says, if you put money in the bank, it's guaranteed and all that kind of crap. We all pay for it as taxpayers, right? And the FDIC is listing businesses that sell guns as high risk. Now, that includes not just gun sellers, but any company who sells ammunition as well. And what else they list as high risk are stuff like pornography, tobacco sales, racist materials, blah, 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 blah. Anybody who runs a head shop, anything along those lines. Now, that's legal justification for discrimination on the part of banking, because they can say, well, you're a high-risk business, therefore we don't have to accept, transactions through you. So it's a legal justification for what? For you to be persecuted. For discrimination. What is wrong with selling tobacco sales, racist materials, or pornography? It's a free country, or at least it's supposed to be. I mean, you don't have to agree or disagree with any of these things to know that it's not your right to determine whether someone can or cannot buy them. You don't have to be a drinker to recognize that there's a right for legal liquor stores to exist. I don't drink personally, very rarely, but and I don't agree with people who do drink excessively. But it's not my place to tell anyone that they can or cannot. I'm not a racist. But if you are, that's on you. It has nothing to do with me. And by the way, the world is full of reverse racists, and all you got to do is go look at any one of these organizations that's out there touting, white privilege and all that nonsense to know that, listen, they're entitled to their opinion too. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but it doesn't mean that it's my place to say to them they can't have that opinion. Pornography. If you want to sell Playboy, I saw an article the other day about a place that was a city that would put a ban on sexual toys, AIDS, right, or whatever you want to call them. You know what? Who is a city to say you cannot sell that? And who is a city to say that you as a citizen can't buy that if that's what you want? I mean, it's insane. Whatever happened to the concept of free will, self-determination, self-reliance, self-governance? Now they're adding guns to the list and ammunition. And, if they want to follow along in good suit, they're going to make hunting knives part of it too. They won't bar you from being able to buy a kitchen knife. But, after that idiot in Isla Vista or California, wherever the heck he was, where he stabbed 3 people to death first and then, shot 3 people and ran over a couple of them. What are we going to have, a ban on cars and steak knives next? All food has to be soft because you can't have a knife to cut it. There's no more steak. It just comes in a tube. Squeeze it out like toothpaste. The House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has released a report that is exposing and arguing that the DOJ is continuing these efforts against firearms and ammunition sales under the guise of this Operation Choke Point. The DOJ action ostensibly aimed at credit and financial fraud, but what it really is a thinly veiled excuse to choke out businesses that the Obama administration finds objectionable. They're pressuring banks to stop doing business with anyone they consider a high-risk business. So, God forbid you run a Quick Stop, or a whatever, and you sell, Playboy magazine. Suddenly, your bank's going to come up and say, "Sorry, we can't take your credit card transactions anymore." Oh, you sell cigarettes, we can't take your, in your store, we can't take your credit card transactions anymore. You sell ammunition, that's it, you're done, you finished, we can't take your credit card transactions anymore. They're using Operation Choke Point, and this is according to Darrell Issa, to conscript banks to do their bidding. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is government abuse of power in a way, shape, and form that all of us are familiar with, and nobody seems willing to stand up and stop. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know where we go from here. There was an article I posted this morning from the New American about how the Democrat and Republican parties, the left and the right, are working together to rewrite the Constitution. I encourage you to read the article. It's on thenewamerican.com. Or just type in "working together to rewrite the Constitution." You'll see it on your search engine. The duopoly of the Democrats and the Republicans, they're working hard. That's their phrase, right? How many times have we heard a politician standing up there? "We're doing the hard work of Congress. We're working hard for the hard-working American people." Love it. Go get me another cigar and a scotch, please. We're working hard for the hard-working American people. Well, the only thing they're working hard at, folks, is to enslave you by crafting legislation that contains every form of a hidden trap they can muster, because they want to apply it under selective prosecution. Like, selectively, they don't prosecute the illegals, but they prosecute you for jaywalking. See, if you're a player, or you're a crony, or you're a pal of the administration, if you've fundraised for them, if you've gathered cash together, if you've, bullied, coerced, or bribed political officials, and as long as it worked towards achieving their goals, you're fine. But if you run afoul of these two spawns of treason, that would be the Republican and the Democratic parties, well, then you're going to get it good and hard. I think that I don't know where it came from, but there used to be a phrase out there, when I lived in the East Coast, and everybody talks kind of like with a little bit of an accent, and they used to have a thing that the hard guy would walk up. He said, "Hey, you mess with the bull, you get the horns, hey." And that's what it's come down to, ladies and gentlemen, a gangster nation, and you mess with the bull, and you're gonna get the horns. Is that what your father, your grandfather, your uncle, is that what they died for on the island of Iwo Jima? Is that what they died for on the beaches of Normandy? Is that what they died for in the Battle of the Bulge? Is that what they died for in Vietnam or Incheon? Maybe it was somewhere in France during World War I. Maybe it was somewhere right here in the United States of America between 1860 and 1865. Maybe it was some long-past relative you don't even know you have. And it was somewhere between 1776 and 1780. See, the truth of the matter is that 3.5 million Americans have died fighting for your right to be free. And that's that we're not counting those who lost a leg or an arm or an eye or their mind. We're just talking about those who actually are horizontal and no longer vertical. 3.5 million of them. And these spawns of treason, these spawns of Satan, and you can take that in a biblical or a generic evil connotation. I don't really care how you take it. This is the spawn of hell. Because all they're interested in is enslavement of you. And they don't care who they step on. They don't care what kind of Machiavellian practices they have to employ. The ends justify the means. Whatever we have to do, it's all acceptable. All's fair in war and war. This administration has no problem doling out grants and sending these administrative agency heads running around who are actually standing there running campaigns and taxpayer money to go out to different campaigns and speak on behalf of, you got this pig here from the I can't even remember what the administration or what administrative agency is with. They're going out there and they're campaigning on behalf of Mary Landrieu at taxpayer expense. Who volunteered us to pay for that? Giving out taxpayer grants. Just vote for us and you'll get plenty more of where this came from. And both parties do it, folks. They're not interested in you. You don't matter. To the sommelier, he doesn't look at the individual grapes that went into the bottle of wine. He looks at the wine, the end product that's been sitting in a bottle, aging. He's not interested in the actual individual grape. He doesn't know the name of that grape. He doesn't know the history of it. He doesn't know where it came from. I mean, he may have a vague idea, some vineyard in France or something. Maybe Southern California. But the trials and the tribulations and the growth and the history of that particular individual grape don't matter. It's just one grape of many that were coalesced together to create this bottle of wine. And even the farmer who's growing the grapes, he's not interested in the individual grape. They're just a collection of grapes. Some will have to get destroyed and crushed while we collect them. Some will get bruised. Some will rot. Some will be cast aside as undesirable. You are, to these people, And I'm talking about the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. I'm talking about the Bilderbergers. I'm talking about, the Council on Foreign Relations. I'm talking about the corporatocracies that run the nation and that run the planet. To you, these people, they're vague. They're kind of on the outside periphery of our vision. It's like they're there, but they're behind a veil of smoke. We can't quite see who they are and what they are. We can hear they're talking, but we can't quite hear the tone of what they're saying. We can't, it's like someone who's lost their hearing aid, and we can see the lips moving and you can hear the mumbling, but we cannot make out the words. They, on the other hand, are looking back at us, and they see nothing but a resource. They don't look at you and see your sweet child. They don't look at you and see those tears on your face of a father who's lost a son. They don't look on you and see the mother who cries for her daughter. What they see is a human resource to be molded, managed, manipulated. You're too stupid and unsophisticated for your own good. You don't even know what's good for you. The hubris, the universal, astronomical hubris of that thought. Because you just want to be left alone to live your little life, and it's okay. There used to be a country song out there, it's okay to be itty-bitty. I don't care if you don't like country. Go look this one up on YouTube. It's called It's Okay to Be Itty Bitty. And the lyrics run along the lines of, it's okay if you just live a small life. That you just have, your little cabin out there, or your little garden, and you just live in your little plot of postage stamp ground in town, and you're happy clipping your lawn, and you don't have to be racing around trying to build billions. Not everybody can be that. Not everybody wants to be that. Not everybody should be that. And it's okay if you don't have a high-minded job where you're in the newspapers every day. It's okay if you're just a plumber and you come home and you hug your wife, you kiss your kids, you play a little ball in the backyard. It's okay to be itty-bitty. But these people, they say no. You don't know what you don't know. And you say, yes, I just don't desire those things. Great. Then you go to the left line. Why can't we just be left alone? Why can't we just do what we want to do? Why do we have to be herded and manipulated? There's plenty for those people that want all of that. Because it doesn't stop with all that. Like the cannibal who gets the taste of flesh and begins to like it, there's no going back. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. Communicate with me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Share these videos or clips out of them with your friends, people that you know. Be a leader. Lead other people. I don't care if it's just you or your son or your wife or your husband, or whether you're the leader of a large community. You are a leader. You're not, You're not just an anonymous face in the crowd. God bless you. Have a great weekend. Be safe, America.